Shalom, call halal Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem Rachakudash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone that teach his truth and do rule well. Wabarakathama to the Ofu elect. It's the brother Gabar, and I'm back with another lesson. This gonna be over the blood moon eclipse we just had. Alright, it was on, I believe, November 7th. And that was a blood moon eclipse. And this is all prophetic stuff that's happening. Everything's prophetic, whether you believe it or not, you know. Even that's written, if you believe it or not, you know. But these things aren't just happening just to look cute. These things aren't happening for everybody just to get, ooh, ah. Nah, man. These things are happening for reasons. The sun and moon was placed up there for reasons. To rule the day, to rule the night, and for times and for seasons. Genesis chapter 1 and verse 14. And Yahweh, Slakia, and Alahayim, because when you go into that word, God, in this Genesis right here, it says Alahayim, which is powers, rulers, or judges, right? Angels. And Alahayim, Slakia, let me call it again, Genesis 1:14. And Alahayim said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night. So it's two lights, right? Two lights in the firmament. You have the sun and the moon. They're both lights. You can't land on the sun because it's too hot. Likewise, you can't land on the moon because it's too hot. You can't land on that light. It's a light. It says, and Alahayim said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. Yes, so the sun, the moon tells us the month, right? The moon tells us the month. It gives us signs and seasons. That's what they're up there for. So if you have a blood moon, right, that doesn't happen every day. That's for a sign, for a season of something, right? And it mentions it in the scriptures. Now, just jumping down to verse 16, proving that each one is a light. Furthermore, Genesis 1:16, and Alahayim made two great lights. Each one is a light of his own, right? And Alahayim made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day. That's what we call the sun. And the lesser light to rule the night. That's what we call the moon. He made the stars also. Yes, so Yahweh Bashim Shai has made the sun and the moon. Two lights. They're lights, okay? And they give us signs and seasons. So when you have a blood moon, which is recorded in the scriptures, the blood moon, why do we have that? Let's get that. Joel 2:31. The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood, right? A blood moon. Before the great and terrible day of the Lord come. So we have these blood moons for a sign that we're in the end. We're in the end now. We're in the end. We're having these blood moon eclipse. And it's plenty blood moons. I see blood moons on my way home from work. It feel like weekly, you know, a lot of the times, or just more than normal, a few times a month, or however the Lord set it up whenever he does it. But I see a lot, man. And a lot of those aren't even reported, because some of them be reported in the news like, yeah, it's going to be a blood moon tomorrow night or tonight or in a week or whatever. But sometimes they might report one in 2 days, but then you'll have one that same night, but they don't report that one, or they just don't report a mass majority of them, you know, because it was blood moons off the wall like a month ago. You know, it's just blood moon. You know, if you see that moon coming up, fresh when it's coming up, it just be dark. It's blood, man, just dark, and then it'll change back, you know, as it gets further in the sky. You know, but these are signs, man. You know, before that great and terrible day of Yahweh Bashim Shai. So us knowing the times, we need to be getting prepared, man. This is the blood moons aren't just oh, y'all, that's cool, let me take a picture and make it a screensaver. Nah, that's not what the blood moon's about. You know, just something. No, the blood moon is before the great and terrible day of the Lord, man. We're in the end, and these prophecies are playing out. So we supposed to be seeing these things, knowing what time it is, knowing what season it is. Is this a season of rejoicing and of mirth? You know, but that's what the world thinks. You know, it's just a sightseeing, a spectacle. That's what the world thinks. It's just a spectacle. Let me read this again. Joel 2:31. Does this sound like a spectacle? The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and terrible day of the Lord come. That's not a spectacle. All right. That's not a spectacle, man. If you treating these things, these signs, these signs as that, then you're gonna be caught up in the hell that's to come. That these signs are foretelling us, that Yahweh Bashim Al Shai is setting up these signs to tell us the season of. You're gonna get caught up in it because you was in the wrong season. You're gonna be trying to wear summer clothes dead winter. You're gonna be caught up and you're gonna freeze. But let's get another one about the moon, right? Because the moon also tells us the month. That's why the Sabbath days go off the month. Off the moon. The word month comes from moon, right? When you look into it, and the Sabbath days go off of the moon. So if you're keeping the Sabbath on a Gregorian calendar, which is the calendar we use now, if you're keeping that every Friday, every Saturday, every Sunday, then you're going off because the moon tells the month. So the new moon is the beginning of every month. So if you're not going off of the moon, the lunar calendar, the moon calendar, then you're automatically off. And the scriptures make it plain, but these things are only plain to the holy. Now let's get Sirach chapter 43 and verse 6. It says, he made the moon also to serve in her season for a declaration of times and a sign of the world. So that's what the moon is for. It's for a declaration of time, of seasons, right? A sign. Verse 7. From the moon is the sign of feast, a light that decreaseth in her perfection. The month is called after her name. That's why the word month, that's how the word month comes from moon. Increasing wonderfully in her changing, being an instrument of the armies above, shining in the firmament of heaven. Let me read that again, verse 8. The month is called after her name, increasing wonderfully in her changing, being an instrument of the armies above, shining in the firmament of heaven. Exactly. So Yahweh Bashim Al Shah set up the moon to give us the passing of time, right? Like it said in Genesis. So that's why the month is based off of the moon. It says over here in Genesis 1:14 again, and Elohim said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. Yeah, so days, weeks, months. The calendar is based off of the moon. So that would cut anybody that's not using the moon for the Sabbaths and the new moons and all of that, and the feasts. Because it said in Sirach chapter 43 and verse 7, from the moon is the sign of feast. All right, so the moon gives us those things. So these blood moons is a sign unto us that it mentioned in Joel chapter 2 and verse 31. Right, these blood moons is for a season, so we know what time it is. It's prophecy that these things were going to happen. Right, that's why we having so many blood moons. Now let's go to Ecclesiastes chapter 3. It says, to everything, Ecclesiastes chapter 3 and verse 1, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. Yes, so now the season of the Lord's return is being declared. And one of the prophecies was that the moon will be turned into blood. Verse 2, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to get and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to rend and a time to sue, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. And we're in a time that the prophecies are speaking now, right? Which they always were, right? But though it tarry, wait for it, it surely won't tarry. So these things are coming to pass now in these latter days. So it says a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. Yeah, so we're not in a time of peace. It's World War III already going on. So these things, these prophecies, man, they're coming to pass. And these blood moons, you know, and if you just look, you're gonna see a lot more than what they reporting. I can say that firsthand. But these blood moons, man, it's telling us the time. You know, it's not just some little cute thing that's going on just because, nah, you know. So pay attention and know what time you in. Are you living your life as in you're in a time of peace, or are you living your life as if you're in a time of war? Call halal Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai Bahashim Rachak Wadash. Forgive me in spirit and power to make this lesson. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and Wabrak Thumb unto the hopefully elect. Shalom.